Paul admonished the Corinthian Christians, let us keep the feast in sincerity and in truth. We see that Paul himself was no stranger to the festival. In Acts chapter 19. In Acts chapter 19, let's turn there, please, and look to about verse 6. That should be Acts chapter 20. Verse 6, it says, and we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and came unto them in Troas in 5 days, where we abode 7 days. And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. In Acts of the Apostles, pages 390 to 391, Ellen White is speaking regarding this very experience. And in fact, let me just give you a background. Notice it says there, verse 6, and we sailed away from Philippi. Philippi is where the Philippian Christians were. And the Philippians are the ones to whom Paul said, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. They were faithful and ardent believers. So here the Spirit prophet says, at Philippi, Paul tarried to keep the Passover. Only Luke remained with him, the other members of the company passing on to Troas to await him there. The Philippians were the most loving and true-hearted of the apostles' converts, and during the 8 days of the feast, he enjoyed peaceful and happy communion with them at Philippi. So at Philippi, Paul kept Passover with the Philippian Christians. This is Paul. Now remember, Paul did not meet Jesus personally when he walked as a man among men. That was years after when Paul became a Christian, years after the crucifixion. And we find him observing the festivals. Now also we should remember that Paul is called the apostle to the Gentiles. So if anything, he would not want to recognize the festivals. But he was speaking the festivals to Gentile believers in Corinth, and now we find him with the Philippian believers. So it was not strange to him. We also know that Paul was a Sabbath keeper. Now we are learning that Paul kept the festivals. And you'll see throughout that he kept Pentecost as well. There were several other Pentecosts after verse 16. After the first Pentecost that we read of, or maybe the first Pentecost that was mentioned in the New Testament. The day of Pentecost, as we know, is an annual event and was celebrated at the upper room and each year thereafter. In verse 16 of Acts 20, it says, and for Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus. Now, Ephesus is where the Ephesians had the temple of Jupiter and Diana. A lot of witchcraft and paganism was practiced there. But it says Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost. Now, of course, this is twofold. He came to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost so that he can observe the festival, as well as sharing the gospel with his Jewish brothers and sisters who would come from all quarters of the world. But Pentecost was celebrated years after the crucifixion. Now let's turn at this time to Colossians. Colossians chapter 2, and try to understand that verse in light of what we have here. Because we are told, let no man therefore judge you in meat or drink, in new moon, feast day, holy day, or Sabbath days. Colossians chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. We read, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. Now, as Seventh-day Adventists, we try to get around this, or we get around this verse in this manner. We say that this is not referring to the seventh-day Sabbath, because it said Sabbath days. But take a closer look and see that the word days there is in italics, meaning that it was added by the translators. So let's read it in its original context, the way Paul wrote it. Verse 16 again. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath. Period. Of the Sabbath. And if you look in this verse, this word Sabbath here, it's the Greek word Shabbaton, which translates directly to the seventh-day Sabbath, the day of weekly repose. That's how Strong's Concordance defines this word Sabbath.
Follow our studies at Solemn Thought Ministries on YouTube to learn more.